Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the last 7 days. I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Andrew Sparrow.
And this is a show where we talk about news that's happened in the last 7 days that relates to PLM, manufacturing, CAD, MES, MOM, simulation, a bunch of whole acronyms and other stuff we can dive in here. We just want to basically give our opinions that may or may not be important about things that are happening around the world. So we're going to dive in today and start off with the exciting world of, an intro. Let's do an intro for the show. And I like that new font. It reminds me of an old show I used to watch called, was it
Ted Danson.
No.
Woody Harrelson.
Cheers. Yes, cheers. And because somebody made the comment, I think last week, that at the end we kind of just appeared to be a whole bunch of guys talking about
drunken guys
over the bar. Yeah. So there we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Where we headed first, Andrew, in this show? Which sector?
Well, as you may have noticed, I am all wrapped up and feeling a little bit cold because I am in one of the homes of aerospace and defense down here in Denver, Colorado. Beautiful, beautiful mountains are all around me. So we're talking aerospace and defense, and I'm going to start off with Northrop Grumman. They have been awarded a $4.8 billion contract for Global Hawk development, modernization, retrofit, and sustainment. So they've been awarded this huge deal for the development, modernization, retrofit, and sustainment of its RQ-4 Global Hawk series of high-altitude, long-endurance, aka HALE, H-A-L-E, unmanned aircraft systems, aka drones. The 10-year award announced by the U.S. Department of Defense on November 25 will cover activities for all U.S. Air Force Global Hawk variants and will run through September 30th, 2030. Huge program, huge. The contract is providing management, of course, including program, business, and technical areas such as engineering efforts, studies, and analyses. So there'll be redesigns as a result of that. Cybersecurity information assurance, interoperability support, facilities modification renovation, integrated logistics support, requirements management, specification management, and quality assurance. No wonder the deal is of such huge value, highly complex maintenance solution they got to deliver over the next, 7-8 years. Congratulations, Northrop.
Yes. Speaking of huge value, NASA, I think, just launched, as in just a few minutes ago, it was scheduled to launch a mission to go check out an asteroid that is apparently worth more than all of the gold on Earth. Today's launch of the Psyche spacecraft is going to try to explore the Psyche asteroid. Yep, they both have the same name. The asteroid is a 140-mile wide asteroid named 16 Psyche, or it might actually be Psyche. That's probably correct. We're going to go with that, Psyche. It could contain a core of iron, nickel, and gold that's apparently worth an estimated 10,000 quadrillion dollars. I'm not sure how we get all of that back here to Earth, but I'd take a share of that. I'd be happy. It's interesting because this mission is supposed to help give us maybe a closer look at the interior of planets. Like they think maybe this asteroid is actually a piece of a planet, and see how planets might have been formed. It's interesting too because Psyche was discovered way back in 1852 and was named after the Greek goddess of Sol. So it's a super interesting exploration. But I guess how does this relate to our world of PLM, CAD, manufacturing, all of that? Is because when you think about creating something like this, like just anything that's going into space, once it gets there, especially unmanned, how is it maintained, right? Like the life cycle of creating this has to go far beyond just making it and developing it here, but it's got to last. And the plans for what happened here have to have redundancies built in, and they have to be able to change. I mean, the launch was scheduled for yesterday, but because of weather conditions, it was now today. And we know from previous things how launches can be delayed months and all of these sort of things. But the question I have for the product lifecycle specifically here is with all of these checks and rechecks and backups and redundancies and more redundant systems so that things don't fail, what's the cost between having things that are too redundant versus basically, when does that cost too much to build in redundancies and it's better just to give it a chance to fail? And I don't know that answer, but thinking of all that in the process is kind of mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it is. Geez, yeah, that's way beyond my pay grade, I must admit. But I think the reality is we do need it in the product life. So for something like this, it relates back to the ISAM doors that we opened up last week, the in-space assembly and manufacturing business, this new world, this new business that's going to be coming out. So I think people are going to be launching from Earth, which is a heavy cost, getting it into space and creating new launch platforms to propel us onto other planets. But I think while you're up there, we've got this whole in-space assembly and manufacturing business going on, combined with MRO and disassembly. So I think that relates back to that. Can we disassemble these things? Can we resell them? Can we design for recyclability? All part of a good CAD PLM system, of course, designed for recyclability. Then you've got to have your as-built documentation right to make sure you can do all of that. Your continuous improvement processes in place, which you're going to sync up with your PLM, MESMOM, etc. So yeah, big stuff. Really interesting.
Yeah. And I think we should maybe fly over to the UK and see if we have any news that can be brought to us from our reporter over there. Hey, Bruce, welcome to the morning or afternoon news show, according to you.
Well, over here, it's an autumnal mid-October. Temperatures have only got 19 degrees C, but we're still all in shorts and we're ready to go. Nice to see you, Ryan.
Andrew's like that. I'm too cold. I'm too cold already.
You got it. What do you got for us, Bruce?
Well, there's a bit of a theme carrying over from last week. Remember last week I was talking about how in the UK, we reported the largest year-on-year increase in orders for new aircraft in the UK aviation industry. Well, it's not common, it's not unique to the UK, I should say. Figures coming out of Seattle are showing that Boeing is reporting its best ever year-on-year, this time for September to September, where it's actually received orders for 224 new aircraft in October alone, a staggering amount of figures. And just when you put this in context, looking on a regional basis, Ryanair, which ordered 300 new aircraft from Boeing since the beginning of May, is planning to replace its entire fleet over the space of the next 8 years, but with the same type of aircraft, the same size. So that's okay, one particular thing. But when we look at different other carriers, they're taking a slightly different approach. And here, the big orange, as we call it, EasyJet in the UK, they're going to be replacing their fleet of currently 330 aircraft by 257 new ones. So it's about a 20% reduction. Now, Andrew, you're probably going to ask the question, but with less aircraft, how can they do more? Quite simply, they're going for bigger aircraft. The current passenger loading typically on an EasyJet flight is about 179, 180 passengers. They're hoping to increase this to about 210 passengers per flight, and it'll be surfacing their more congested routes across Europe. Now, there's a couple of interesting facts about this. Why they're doing this is that a number of I won't say regional hubs, but key airports within the European networks, such as Gatwick and Schiphol Airport, these particular stations are actually reducing the number of slots available. So how does a carrier like EasyJet maintain its revenue streams and actually grow the business but with fewer slots? And one of the ways of doing this is buying new aircraft which are bigger than the current ones. There's also a knock-on effect to that, Andrew, as we look down the line, on the MRO side. If you've got a fleet which is actually going to be shrinking by 20% over the next 8 to 10 years, that's obviously going to feed into all our MRO planning. And 20% is quite a significant number, I think, in anybody's books.
Exactly.
I'd come up with a slightly different angle here, actually, now on this particular story. Excuse me. Well, we talk about what type of aircraft are going to be built. Are we sticking with the Ryanair approach? And I know I'm simplifying it to the nth degree, or do you go for bigger aircraft, etc., like EasyJet? Well, IAG, who we know own both Iberia and British Airways, are looking at this problem in great detail. At the beginning of the pandemic, everyone remembers the photographs of the large aircraft, the 380s in particular, which have been stuck in boneyards in North America, Australia, and Spain, etc. But we're now seeing these coming back as passenger levels start to pick up again. And what's actually happening is that IAG are looking to replace their existing wide-body fleet. So it's another interesting aspect on how aviation, aerospace is recovering to meet new particular challenges.
Yep. I think the expansion plans of the whole Ryanair, IAG, EasyJet, etc., that you've mentioned produce a number of diverse challenges, if I will. Manufacturers need to balance producing more of the same or building larger aircraft, which seems to be a bit of a trend. Obviously, then you've got your environmental footprint impact, to maximizing existing route availability, anticipating future wide body or narrow body demand, et cetera, et cetera. So in this hugely dynamic world now that's happening in aviation, the impact on obviously manufacturing, maintenance you've already mentioned, the ability to scale up. I mean, I know Boeing spent millions on its manufacturing execution systems, Airbus likewise, Embraer starting to reinvest in that whole area. I think they're all seeing it coming and getting in a really well integrated manufacturing solution. Backflushed into the PLM and CAD is really critical. I guess the biggest question now is, will their suppliers be able to keep up with this digital OEM? Because they're all massively digitalized, will those supply chains be able to correspond and sync up with that as well? So it's going to be a big challenge for supply chains to bring that digitalization in.
Very much so, Andrew. And in fact, when we talked about this last week, one of the challenges was down to a shortage of engines and airframes. If we think back before COVID, nobody anticipated these problems. In fact, many people predicting the end of the large A380s, and Airbus subsequently actually stopped production of the A380s. 3 years on, the whole world seems to be in a very different place across many of these particular sectors.
Yep.
Bruce, you tend to like to push the boundaries sometimes. Oh, did we lose you?
No, I'm not sure about pushing the boundaries. I always like to go on a slightly different angle some of my stories, whether it's space tugs last week. This year, we're going to be talking about other boundaries too. Thank you very much for that. So actually the use of simulation and digital twins when we're talking about developing new products, new solutions for space in this particular case. I picked up a very interesting story about NASA's planned mission to Venus. This is the Veritas mission, which will be planning to go to Venus in 2031. Now, 2031, for those who are a certain age, is not very far away, actually. It's just around the corner in many respects. But whereas in the past, a lot of NASA's development work has been carried out in simulated atmospheres, and we've talked about this on previous broadcasts, what NASA have done is gone back to basics and in fact put boots on the ground to test the practical use of some of the new machinery, new techniques they've delivered. And most recently, they've been testing their Venus equipment, where? On Iceland. Now you probably think, Iceland and Venus, what do they have between us? In fact, what they have is volcanoes. They're both very volcanic environments, and NASA are hoping to get some real feedback on how their machines can survive and operate in a volcanic atmosphere by taking them to Venus. And I thought it was quite good, quite an interesting take on how simulation can go so far, but then let's come back to absolute basics and let's look at the real ground.
Yeah, I also think that Iceland and Venus, what do they have between us? Sounds like a new 80s song or something, but...
Well, you hum it, I'll sing it.
And Bruce, thank you for joining us on
I think it'll go back to simulation ultimately, don't you? And by the way, I need to go to Iceland.
Very expensive. It's even more expensive than Copenhagen.
Is it? Well, that's where you got your chips on a Friday night, you said.
Yes, it was actually. That's a very old song, by the way, but never mind. Guys, love to speak to you, and it's farewell from London, and we'll catch up with you all next week.
Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
And as we continue on our PLM road trip, so to speak, today of this news, the last 7 days, those of you who are just joining us, welcome back to the last 7 days, the show where we talk about news happening related to the life cycle news in the world in the last 7 days. We brought on one of our automotive experts, Dan, to join us this session. Hi, I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Andrew Sparrow, and that's...
And I'm Dan Wilson.
We've got some interesting news happening basically, well, this week, but it's possible that your next EV is going to come from China. Over the past 3 years, 9 Chinese automakers have set up shop in Mexico, now representing 9% of all passenger vehicles sold in Mexico. For years, Chinese vehicles weren't represented in Mexico at all, but giants like BYD, Chery, and SAIC Motors have established themselves trying to offer quality products at attractive prices. It's super interesting because Mexico already plays a critical role in the North American car production. And now that some Chinese automakers are promising plants throughout Mexico, it's very possible that Chinese vehicles will be driving into the US market soon. I think whenever we think of Chinese manufacturing...
Well, how does this relate to the whole CAD, PLM, MES-MOM side of things? And I think you're about to go there. Whenever the average person thinks of China manufacturing, quality isn't at the top of their regard and their respect. I've worked in a variety of industries, and I'll be honest, maybe they start, but they very quickly get the quality up. And, you know, if you look at luxury hotels around the world and things like that, all of the furniture comes out of China and the highest possible quality. So quality should correct itself. But I'm sure there'll be a bit of a worry on that. You know, how does CAD, PLM, et cetera, relate to this whole thing?
Well, so it's interesting because when you just talked about how how people don't necessarily think of quality when they think of Chinese manufacturing. And this was actually the case with the cars and automotives being sold in China. Even Chinese made autos were not the ones that most Chinese were buying. They were buying foreign cars. But what China realized was that the EV market was a little more of a level playing field because everybody was trying to figure out how to make these electric vehicles. So they effectively created a new and revamped the process for creating electric vehicles in China. And now those are actually things that are a big industry in China and that they've decided to expand elsewhere. So they threw government money, investments, private money, et cetera, all into a domestic EV or startup initiative. Including subsidies to citizens and to building public charging infrastructure to help make EVs a thing. And in fact, the Chinese battery company CATL is now the world's #1 producer of lithium-ion batteries, which is a huge thing needed in just about every electric vehicle, at least currently. So yeah, they saw a gap in the market and decided to figure out how do we make this happen. And now apparently they are lower cost and high quality. So once these actually drive into America from Mexico, I know I've used that pun too many times, but when it happens, there is a good chance it's going to shake things up because of this good quality for lower cost process they've been able to come up with.
And they've also been playing with this whole idea, which gets rid of the battery anxiety thing that everybody talks about, is they've been trying to hook up with Fisker, the new EV, the SUV that's coming out, with BYD's trying to come in with this switch out battery. You go in, you drive in, they take the battery out, they replace it, and you drive out, and it all takes place in 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that, like a pit stop, so to speak.
And that is happening in China currently. They do actually have the battery switch outs like that. So yeah.
There you go. Great. Good. Up next, Rivian. So I think we know Rivian pretty well, producing some great vehicles. Some of the design stuff, the R1T, the R1S is pretty dramatic, pretty unique, but really nice vehicles. So Rivian has reported better than expected EV deliveries for the third quarter. Rivian Automotive on Monday reported record third quarter electric vehicle deliveries and said it remains on track to produce 52,000 EVs in 2023, which is kind of the same number I remember Lucid, we were talking about last week, are also projecting into their new plant they're going to be building. So Rivian said it delivered 15,500 vehicles during the period, which is up 23% from the second quarter of 2023, maybe 2022, and ahead of Wall Street estimates. So good news. Obviously, I think we recall they've been through a lot of challenges. I'm sure they're still, it's still a little bumpy because it took Elon how long to get his manufacturing operating at scale? Well, I know it took him 7 days a week sleeping on the shop floor, 24 hours a day. It took him a lot of years to get scale, didn't it? And I know Rivian have been through very similar challenges, and they're pretty new to the game. For me, if I was to take a punt at some of the challenges that I think they've been through, it's been kind of a little bit of inexperience collaborating on EVs, perhaps collaborating from design engineering into manufacturing. Failure to accurately maybe simulate the manufacturing. So I think a lot of it's been this stuck in design engineering with a super talented group of people and maybe manufacturing not being integrated as part of that process. Just as thought, easily fixable with an integrated digital thread. There you go.
And Dan, what do you
My
have?
2 cents.
Yeah, so some of this has to go back to the UAW strike. The future of electric cars becomes a make or break issue as U.S. auto workers strike continues. So UAW workers at the engine and transmission plants, they risk losing their jobs if electric vehicles replace gas-powered ones. So these battery plants are there's give you an example. So there's three engine and transmission plants in, say, like Kentucky. 2 battery plants are going in within the same area, and these are like becoming a real big issue for the electric engine and transmission workers. So if the electric vehicles replace gas-powered ones, most UAW workers at engine and transmission plants will lose their jobs. And if lower-paying battery plants aren't union, workers won't have anywhere to get same wages and benefits. And how this ties back
Go
Two
ahead. Things, Dan. So are the ICE factories in a different location to the EV factories?
They are within like 25-mile radius.
Okay.
So they're in commuting distance. So so there's a reskilling opportunity, not a relocation challenge. Okay, so reskilling. So is there the chance that the ICEs can be reskilled into the EV manufacturing engineers? I mean, that given that EVs kind of taking the lead on the future, ignoring the hydrogen debate, maybe there's that chance to reskill, I hope.
So just as an example, I don't know their wages, but say it's, $50 an hour at an engine and transmission plant. These EV battery places are $27 to $30.
Ooh.
So it's a big cut. It's a big cut. It's not the same wages and benefits. So there's a
big reskill into other areas. Yeah, big challenge. Okay.
Big challenge. But how this relates to PLM is there's still a human factor that a big human factor need.
I think the biggest challenge with EVs, sorry, cutting you off there, is the production price of an EV is significantly higher than an ICE. I mean, there's been years of design experience, cost efficiencies, not cost cutting, cost efficiencies, value engineering that's been going in for years over ICEs. Obviously, we're new to EVs, so our costs are much, much higher. I think we need to be constantly looking at ways to bring the price of an EV down. I mean, if you look at your average EV, Tesla is a good example. There's not too many buttons and dials, which get expensive, and you just got a touch screen, which is producing at a lot lower level. So we've just got to keep driving the price down. Battery technologies have got to advance. It needs a lot of design expertise in there, I think, to bring those battery prices down. Hey, I know it's an ideal world that I'm operating in when I'm saying this, but all of this stuff's got to help so we can keep those workers going.
I think it also is a big sustainability issue too. It needs to be more, the battery stuff still needs to be a little bit more sustainable. But you touched on driving the cost down. I think that's where China comes in, and they'll be coming in and driving that cost down, forcing the other EVs to kind of come in at a different price point.
Yeah, I don't know whether that solves the problem. I think what we've got to do domestically is have that ability to be smarter, more intelligent, look at better ways to bring prices down, let battery technology advance, look nearshoring into Mexico, because there's challenges with manufacturing in China. There really are. We play to our strengths domestically, and that goes for Europe as well.
Yeah, everybody forgets India, though. They're in the game.
That's true.
Big time. Tata's cranking it out over there. You bet. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next? I think you got some stuff on, is it Mercedes?
Yeah, we got a recall. So the R232 Mercedes AMG SL recalled. I believe we're up to now 16 to 20,000 vehicles. I think there was some recalls over the summer, spring and summer. and we've got a wiring harness issue. So it's featuring, this issue is featuring a wire harness for the starter and alternator that may not be secured properly. So this blunder may result in a short circuit, leading to a loss of power, but also that's not all. It's the risk of a fire. So that can't be ruled out because of the high electrical currents flowing through the wire harness.
It's in today's world with all of our quality check, quality assurance, and those things. It's still interesting. We have a lot of recalls that especially happen in the automotive industry. Those who joined us on one of our critical threads recently, we talked about how, that number is higher than you think it would be. And cars are just getting more and more complicated with hybrids and EVs and these kind of things happening. So how do we stop, safety issues? If you're driving and lose power, your car catches on fire, that's not great.
To me, it's not just the OEM, but it's also into their supply chain, design verification, validation from a decent PLM, traceability, design collaboration across your ecosystem. All of those things have to be in place. And then, as you say, a really strong end-to-end quality management system, including manufacturing, quality gates. All of these things should be being picked up across a decent digital thread, CAD, PLM, simulation, manufacturing solution. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, we're talking about a $2 wire harness cable. So,
come on.
Yeah,
it's crazy, scary when you talk
traceability is key, though. Very much.
I got one final quick one for you guys. US robots installation hit double-digit growth. Worth noting, because the New World Robotics report shows that robot installations in the US were up by 10% in 2022, almost matching the all-time peak of 2018. The car industry was one of the biggest drivers for it. Funnily enough, 47% of it was due to the automotive industry. There's lots of numbers to support it all. To me, robotics are absolutely a massive area that is growing and growing and growing. How do you introduce robots to your plants? You've obviously got to look at where they can be most beneficial, educate your team, reskill your team for maintenance of these robots, et cetera, handoff, simulation practices so you can simulate, make sure the most effective use of robots. And then integrate the whole thing within your MES/MOM. So you're managing your overall plant through the use of robots, cobots, and still obviously human interface as well. So big stuff, lots happening in robots in automotive as well.
Yeah, it gives a new definition to the whole co-working idea. It's not just you working with humans, but got to factor in what's happening with the robots and even the humanoid ones that are making it big. I think we talked a couple episodes ago about 10,000 a year new humanoid robots being manufactured to work alongside of humans. So yeah, interesting times we live in. Well, Dan, thanks for hopping on and joining us on this road trip here. And we're now going to bid you adieu and head down to another portion or another area of America, of the American continent, so to speak here.
All
so
right.
we
Thank
will
you. Check out Friday Fun History.
That's right. Check out Dan's Friday Fun History on LinkedIn. I meant to say that and I forgot. So thanks for reminding me about that, Dan. And with that being said, welcome back to the last 7 days. If you're just joining us, this is the show where we talk about product life cycle as it relates to recent items in the news over the last 7 days. I'm Brian Spellman and
I'm Andrew Sparrow. Hola, and that's
Joseph Arevalo.
Hey, Joseph, welcome to this segment of our last 7 days news show. We're going to talk about tech and probably a little bit of manufacturing if I know you. But Andrew, what do you have for us today?
First up, Micron Tech. Big Micron Tech gets a $1.3 billion grant to build Japanese semiconductor plant. So Micron is getting this. They're putting it into an advanced semiconductor plant in Hiroshima. Japan has already advanced them $307 million for the development following the US-based chip maker stating it will spend around $3.3 billion investing in advanced chip plants in the country. So Micron will use the plant to produce advanced chips using ASML's extreme ultraviolet lithography machinery. It is Japan is desperate to reduce its dependence on China for microchips and plans to triple its own capacity. We are seeing similar things in the US, of course, with the CHIP Act, huge growth in PCBs. We were talking about AI with NVIDIA last week, AI chips. It's a really big area, very
Does
complex.
virtual manufacturing play into that at all?
I think it really does. I mean, when you think about how complex this is across miniaturization, high density interconnects, material selection, the process, etc. So virtual manufacturing is fundamental to it, as is MESMON for that matter. If you look at how the complexity of the designs, virtual manufacturing will really help you kind of simulate those designs and that manufacturing process down to the nth degree. MES is going to manage the production of these designs efficiently, ensuring that each step is executed accurately, helps you with your material selections, rapid prototyping, helps reduce your costs down and quality, etc. So a huge impact on the overall improvement of PCB manufacturing, definitely.
Yeah, you got to have. I mean, MES relates to all those areas and more. I mean, there's some you didn't even mention, but like how whenever you try to reduce your dependence on some of the process and be able to make your own, let's say, chips. I mean, it's a whole. I guess it relates back a bit to what we talked about with China doing for making EVs. Like that's a whole revamping of a lot of the processes here.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I hear Joseph might have some cool sunglasses to sport or something.
Really cool, because guys, the last week we were talking about Google and their boots and the AI hardware. It looks like all the companies are moving forward right now with the same direction, which is AI and hardware. Now it's Facebook and Meta. They are partnering right now with Ray-Ban to create new glasses, with AI.
Llamada de Joseph Arevalo.
Sorry, that's my
talking of AI.
Now talking about technology, this is a smart home. It sounds like. I don't know.
Love the high tech. Sorry. Yeah. So I was telling you guys that we are in the same direction with everything, right? Now it's Meta with the glasses. They are trying to integrate social media, audio, connecting the conversations, having more connectivity with all the things that we are doing. This is IoT, but now the chips that they are creating is putting all the technology with AI in our daily life, So it's a lot of challenges that they have to face right now, a lot of testing, because the chips, we are talking about new technologies, really microchips. To have that, we have to consider in topics of design, the ergonomics things,
Llamada de Joseph
So,
Arevalo.
okay, hold on, guys. I know what I'm gonna do.
While Joseph handles his
it's cool.
technology problems.
Unplug.
No, I think it's neat because like Meta is the Quest, like the VR Quest glasses. They make those too, right? So like, are you saying these are going to be used for conference calls and computer stuff and all of that in addition? Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Basically, for example, we saw from Apple. I think they are calling those glasses
Apple Glass.
Well, yeah,
Apple Glass,
like
and then
that.
you've got the Google ones. So they're kind of playing catch up.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty
How
similar.
much?
How much?
How much?
Oh, let me see. $299.
Wow, $300 gets you AI-powered glasses.
That's a game. That's a game changer in itself, because the Google glasses, if memory serves me right, were like $1,500. There's been no price on Apple Glass, but they're going to be $1,000+. So $299 is a heck of a thing. They must have figured out that CAD, PLM, simulation, virtual manufacturing really well to bring that price down. I mean, because they're not probably going to compromise their margins. They're definitely going to keep their price down. I wonder how they did that. The design efficiency, quality control, standardization, probably some economies of scale being Google, buying power, etc. I mean, I wonder how they got it down to that price. That's impressive.
Yeah, Yeah, surprising because we know the quality of Ray-Ban, right? We know what
Yep.
is the quality or the direction that Mark is looking for with Meta. So let's see how it goes. The price is really attractive. They are looking for markets
Yeah.
with Gen Z and millennials, probably other kind of generations also. But the price is amazing. Yeah, really
Yeah.
competitive. Yeah.
Yeah, and talking about everything that Andrew's mentioned here with everything that Andrew literally just said for the considerations you need to maybe get the cost down, one thing I think that a lot of companies don't necessarily consider all the time is the actions of humans or maybe even malicious actions that could happen. So just this week on Tuesday, Google posted that they had parried the largest denial of service attack to date. This one was 3 times larger than any previous attack. There were apparently attackers now have the ability to create just huge numbers, hundreds of millions of requests per second. So a denial of service attack is when you keep sending all these requests for bogus data so that the real request can't get through. If you've ever tried, I think Amazon had one where you're trying to go on Amazon to buy stuff and nobody could actually do it because of this attack. And so, when people are putting these out, it means that as we're trying to create a product, whether it's a physical product or a digital product or a digital service, we also have to consider what can happen to mess this up, because not every actor in the world is a good actor, right? Some people are there to, try to make bad things happen. And so it's kind of just, how do you prepare for what humans are going to do to try to mess up you, whether it's your competitors or, just, I don't know, high school hackers who are wanting to kind of mess things up too. So it's just a big point that product lifecycle isn't just about making the physical product and getting it to completion and maintenance, but it's also about how do you protect it and how do you correctly prepare for cyber attacks and malicious activities.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never forget. I met with the HP, the CISO HP, maybe 5 years ago, and she was saying, obviously, what everybody's doing right now is kind of wrapping cybersecurity around situations, ring fencing, firewalls, et cetera, et cetera. And she said to me, the biggest game changer is where you embed security from day one into everything that you design and you engineer. So you design for security day one. Mm-hmm. She said, every day we walk into our home, into an office, what it is, and we flick the switch. She said, years ago, you'd have electrocuted yourself. It wasn't safe, it wasn't secure. And now we just design security into everything that we do. And then she said, that's where we have to move to from day one and not use it as an afterthought. So to me, that's the product lifecycle.
Yeah, that's an important point. And I know that every week on this show, it seems like Joseph likes to give us a little bit of an update on manufacturing and nearshoring. I know I stole a little bit of your thunder by talking about some Chinese initiatives earlier, but what updates do you have, Joseph?
Yeah, how is the tension right now with China and the US, right? So Mexico is getting a lot of hype right now. Pushing for the manufacturing, the nearshore and reshoring with other companies that they were manufacturing in Asia and now coming back to Mexico, right? To take advantage of the different benefits that the government in Mexico are pushing forward. So now looks like we had an article early this week, and Mexico has introduced fiscal incentives, which is tax deductions, to attract companies engaged in nearshoring. Yeah. So these incentives offer deduction ranging from 56% to 89% for investments in 2023 and 2024. So it looks like the projections with the manufacturers in Mexico, they are expecting to grow annually, like 5% in all the revenue that they have. So it's in different sectors, guys. That is not only for automotive and aerospace. And the party, they are including electronics, We are really huge right there with high-tech electronics, also pharma, and also other industries like cinemas, right? So yeah, it's different. Looks like
Cinematography in Mexico. I didn't see that one coming. Interesting.
yeah,
Must be beautiful.
really.
Backdrops, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see, because looks like Andrew, the nearshore applies for different industries, and yeah,
I think the biggest challenge. I mean, having worked in a lot of emerging economies, which is just so much fun, the energy, the just kind of natural raw talent that is in emerging economies, and Mexico is a great reflection of that and a replication of that. So I think the problem you've always got is the knee-jerk reaction to increasing business, increasing demands, is throw more people at it. And because that's the culture, it's like, yeah, because I want to create employment, so let's throw another 20 people at that problem. The challenge you've got is that you're coming out of a high-tech offshore China, Vietnam, etc., and we're coming in, and what we can't do in Mexico is just throw people at the problem. We have to raise our game digitally, hugely. We cannot just rely on the human being, because unfortunately we make mistakes, don't we? We have to bring in a lot of digitalization strategies across the entire product life cycle. So I think that's something we just need to keep reminding people. It might cost a little bit more money than hiring a person, but in the long term, it's going to minimize your errors. It's going to really make things work. So.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, let me tell you, because I had a project with a company over here in Guadalajara with electronics and PCBs manufacturing, and all the projects that I ran before. So all the customer are very related to the manufacturing. They have a lot of leadership with the things that they need to do to have the quality that they need. So the people are pushing for automation, for software, for MES, for different kind of suites to help the human mistakes, and try to avoid all these kind of things that we have, like human operations, as you said, right? But yeah, the easy way to solve the charge of work is with more people, but also we have different incentives and initiatives to become more digital country when we are in manufacturing. Yeah,
you got to compete, step up the game. You got it. Good.
Yeah, I think I was reading there's a projection over the next 6 years that they're expecting at least $50 billion in foreign direct investments into Mexico for nearshoring. So I mean, it's a huge market, and I know that we've got a lot of talks here about every segment so far. We've had some human factor, which you think might be planned because of this transition I'm about to do, but it really wasn't. But we have these big human factor considerations in all of these markets in aerospace and automotive and technology and nearshoring down in Mexico, which is a great reason for us to head over and talk about the human element of all of this. So Joseph, thanks for joining us. And we're going to head over to our people and culture segment.
Yeah.
We're into the people and culture segment here on the last 7 days. Hi, I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Andrew Sparrow, and that is
Greg Stewart. Good to see you all.
Good to see you. And for those who might just be joining us here in the last 15 minutes of the show, this is the show where we talk about news in the world today in the last 7 days that relates to various segments of the industries and how all of this, especially in this section, how things dealing with the human element relate to the product life cycle, the manufacturing, all of this. So, Greg, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, well, excited to chat about it. I mean, we've had so many conversations already today that, as you have referenced, has that human factor to it. So excited to delve into a couple more things. Before I get into that, Andrew, I hear you're in Denver. How's the weather treating you? Are you good? Are you ready to be back home? How you feeling?
You're funny. I'm here in 3 layers, and you're there in a t-shirt. You're a few yards away from me. So there you go. It says it all, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's
it's
right.
Beautiful.
Well,
it's beautiful.
if you're headed out tonight, you're going to miss the freezing temperatures that are going to hit overnight into early Saturday
Oh, wow.
morning. So
Winter has
this
arrived in Colorado. Good.
that's right. This isn't the weather section. So
Yeah, it's like
moving
80
on,
degrees
moving on.
outside right now. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Well done, y'all.
Texas, it's great. It's great. BA Systems has apparently won the Most Attractive Engineering Employers Award from Randstad UK survey. They survey about 12,000 people in the UK, 136,000 people globally. And so BAE Systems has taken the #1 spot, with Rolls-Royce coming in at #2, just
Wow.
for the engineering space. Yeah.
Wow.
Now,
So
that's
what?
not-
So why? How come? What are they doing that makes them an attractive engineering employer?
It's
You
got to
know,
be a bald head and a beard, I think.
Okay.
100% is what it is.
Maybe where I'm going wrong then. Okay.
That's right. Well, you and I need to rethink our strategies, Andrew.
Yeah.
You know, the two most important factors, #1 by a long shot, was work-life balance, right? That's the most important factor for choosing a new employer. And then the second one is attractive salary and benefits.
What does that mean, work-life balance? Because I get a little tired of that statement. I just want to know, what does it mean? Because I'd like to get a viewpoint.
It's a good question. I think we all have different answers, don't we? Right? I don't know, Andrew. What would you say
That
work-life balance is?
I think that's the right answer. I actually think so. I think no one has the right to tell anyone what is work-life balance. I think it's a personal viewpoint. I think what's right for me is not right for you, and vice versa. I think if you have a family that you've got 15 kids or 3 kids or 1 kid, and you've decided this is how you want to look after your family, this is the kind of job that you want to do, then I think you figured it out. But I think if you are getting yourself into the wrong job in order because it gives you a salary, then I think you're never going to have a work-life balance. You're going to have a miserable work. It doesn't matter. I could do 20 hours a week and be miserable.
Yeah.
I could do 80 hours a week and be super happy. So it's a very personal answer. And I think you hit the nail on the head by the way you answered that.
Yeah.
But what else?
Yeah.
What else made them the #1?
Agreed. The other thing was salary and benefits, right? That's always going to be top of the list. I don't think I've ever had a survey or seen a survey that's like, oh, that's at the bottom of the list. There's always going to be.
Of course, it's important. You've got to put food on the table, look after the family, etc., etc. But what else?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. I think there's a larger question around what's a reason that somebody goes to work for an employer versus what's a reason that somebody stays for an employer. And I think that's something that's going to be pushed and challenged as we're going through these massive industrial changes as Industry 4.0 is coming in and changing absolutely everything, right? I think you're right. I think, to me, a company has to have a vision. It has to have a purpose. It has to have a direction where it's going and why it's going there. So I think you can kind of ask that question before you join, and I think you can see the answer when you've joined. Definitely. I think the one that you cannot figure out before you've joined is the real culture of an organization. But I think it is so. I think that's one of the top 2 or 3. I mean, I spout the old Drucker thing, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I think culture's right up there. And I don't know, the pay and the benefits is definitely in the top 3 or 4, but I don't know whether it's #2, 3. It could be #4. I think, again, it may be personal.
Yeah, I think that one thing that Greg said was there's factors of why people join and there's factors of why people stay. And I think your salary and benefits probably really rate up there with why you join an organization. But I think why you stay, or at least for me, I'll say the reason I want to stay at a company is if I feel like I'm valued, not just looked at as a cog in the wheel, but actually valued by the company, right? Like, you know, where you feel like people look at you, I guess, as a human and look at that whole factor, which relates back to everything else you've said about, you know, a good work-life balance, a good understanding of the mission of the company and how you actually fit in, which relates also to any process we're doing, like in a product life cycle, where if somebody understands how their job fits into helping other people's jobs make sense, make them better. Like maybe this process I'm doing for designing something takes me an extra 30 minutes because I have to do these tedious tasks. But if I know that that's saving somebody, down the line 10 hours, days, weeks, or whatever it is, then that makes sense, right? So I think understanding how you fit in, and companies that take the time to make sure their employees understand how they fit into the company and the overall process are the ones that are going to have people stick around longer.
Well, and you say overall process, but also to Andrew's point, it's trying to make sure that you as an individual understand how what you're doing impacts the overall vision for the organization. If there's no vision, if there's no roadmap to say this is where we're going and this is the impact that we want to make, it's really difficult to step back and say, here's how you as an individual is making an impact on that and helping push that needle on a daily basis, for sure.
And like with the idea of us taking and making impacts, I'm curious on your thoughts on this idea here. Is a lot of times when people are looking for a new job or for a transition, they think, oh, you got to network, networking is important. But I guess, is that something that's only important when you're looking for a new job, or why is networking important?
I think it's great. I think it's always, there's introverts, there's extroverts. Not everyone loves to network, right? I feel like the majority of people that I talk to don't even like to interview. I kind of step back and go, networking is something that should be in and out of everyone's day-to-day job, right? You should be building those relationships in the community that you're working in, that you're spending time in, that you're investing in, so that if something happens, God forbid, something happens in an organization that you're at and you need to lean on your network for potentially finding a new job, or you're making a new hire and you're wanting somebody who you trust, go to your network. Your network is the people that you're going to trust probably more than LinkedIn and Indeed job boards, right? So
yeah, I think you're right. Networking's important, but you're right. There are people who are not comfortable with that. They're more introverted. So maybe it's the answer is self-marketing. I think your ability to put yourself in the best possible light in front of colleagues, peers, superiors, subordinates, etc. So I think probably marketing, and I think if you market yourself, even if you're an introvert, it might be some form of communication via an email or maybe, I don't know, a blog or something. I think you just need to market yourself in the best possible way so people can say, that's a decent guy, I'd like to help him or her.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for employers over the next 10 years, that's from a candidate side of things, but employers need to be creating opportunities for employees to upskill and reskill. And that's something that, as we're having these massive changes, especially in the automotive industry, right? We were talking about this in the new battery manufacturing plants. It's a huge difference than the engine manufacturing plants that's currently happening. And so providing that way is going to be huge as well. I think increasingly over the last couple of years, we've seen talent and resources and people kind of step back and go, I want to make an impact on both the digital side of things as well as the physical side of things. And that's where the engineering space gets kind of fun, right? That's where we're seeing the digital thread and turn into physical changes.
You're talking about like opportunities and stuff. Was there any news this week about any companies that are, encouraging news of jobs on the hunt?
Yeah, it sounds like both Airbus and Aerojet Rocketdyne are doing some massive hiring pushes over the next couple months. Aerojet Rocketdyne is moving their headquarters to Huntsville, Alabama, and then they're also building a new advanced manufacturing facility. The plan is to hire at least, I think it was 705 if we want to get really specific. The plan is to hire 705, and they need to maintain that 705 employees in that based on what the state has said. Yes, this is what you've agreed to. This is what we're going to hire. And so there's a lot of hiring push there. Additionally, in the UK, Airbus is hiring another 1,100 people in cybersecurity, software engineering, just going towards the the tech space, right?
That's a very interesting one. I remember when the whole Brexit thing was coming along over there,
Yeah.
Airbus was one of the first ones to stick its hands up and say, we're out of here, we're going to leave.
Yeah.
And here they are, adding 1,100 people.
Leaning in.
Very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and speaking of people, one thing we like to try to do on this segment is just to take everybody we've talked to today, bring them back in and see if anybody has comments, they want to cross the sectors, across the streams, and see if there's anything else to bring up. So I want to bring back everybody here. We've got a Dan, we have a Bruce, we have possibly a Joseph, and I just want to see if anybody has comments they would like to bring about on anything talked about today. Let's have Dan.
I guess I've blasted them all out.
Yeah.
You bet.
Well,
You bet.
I think we keep talking about how China's coming into the EV world. Let us not forget that they made their way into the auto market in the late 60s into the 70s with Toyota, the Honda. So it's not uncommon that we see the innovation come through when in this revolution of EV.
Yeah,
Sure.
lots of innovation happening. Everything we talked about today shows some sort of changes basically happening, whether it's specifically to product development, to manufacturing, to innovation, to digital making a huge impact here. But it's encouraging because one thing I think that keeps happening is every time we talk about a lot of these changes, whether it's robotics or AI coming, it's usually viewed as a threat to industries. I know Andrew has his soapbox of how whenever there's a revolution, it actually helps to create more jobs and stuff. But I think a big concern now is what's happening, with robots, with AI, with all these changes. And to Greg's comment of all the jobs being created just today, right? So there's some encouraging news out there. But what is the biggest change that you all think might happen in the near future with any of these industries we're talking about?
I think it's always fear that drives what's going on, and I think it's always right to be fearful of technological advancement and what's coming in. It's fear of the unknown, isn't it? As easy it is for me to say it'll create more jobs with an industrial revolution, I think we have to be empathetic to the fact that somebody has to make that decision to step into a new world, into a new skill. And there's a fear that you make a fool of yourself. There's a fear that you might fail. So I think we have to be just super sensitive to the people who have got to change. Weeks ago, I made the statement, truck drivers, you've been warned, autonomous vehicles are coming in, you've been given 10 years warning of it, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, I'm not driving a truck. Those guys have got to make that shift, that change. So it all comes down to empathy and helping people to make that shift into a new world.
Mm-hmm. People still need to make robots. The humans still need to
maintain them
and maintain them and develop AI and develop,
or be batteries that power them, like they showed in the Matrix.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. There you go.
Bruce or Joseph, you have any final comments for us today?
What we're missing here is also, I was going to say the remarks about people changing their jobs because have to change their jobs, etc. And Andrew gave the example of the truck drivers. This is only going to be driven by, no pun intended, but by support from government to retrain redundant drivers, because their focus is on the bottom line. So you have bunches of the entire workforce who, for a variety of reasons, don't have the skill sets to work perhaps in these more, in their perception of modern 21st century industries. So there's a wider societal perspective and change, and initiatives have to be put in place to support them.
Yeah, definitely government's got to play a part. There's no doubt about it. But I think, again, we can't just wait around for Big Brother to go do this. Can't wait around for government to carry that responsibility. I think as an individual, you have to make that decision of things that are changing. But yeah, it definitely needs that government involvement as well. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us for another exciting, hopefully, episode of the last 7 days. We'll see you all next week.
Have a great
Good to
week.
see you all.
Thank you.